Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Part of the introductions is just to tell you who the great and the good and the mischievous are up on this podium here. So I'm going to introduce them. My name's Robin Gibbons. I'm one of your professors. I'm Dean of Foundation House in Oxford, belong to Oxford University, and one of the fellows of the faculty. But if we look over here, we have Dr. Carol Eipers, who's this year's graduation speaker, a GTF alumna, and she's Vice President and Executive Director of Catechetics for the publishing company of William H. Sadlier. So that's Carol here. And next to her is the very Reverend Dr. John Moses, again like me from the United Kingdom, who's our John Macquarie Professor of Anglican Theology here at the GTF, and the Dean Emeritus of St. Paul's Cathedral, London. So Dr. John Moses. Rabbi Dr. James Michaels, next to him, who's the Rabbi Stanley Dreyfus Professor of Jewish Studies at the Graduate Theological Foundation, and he's our recipient this year of the Doctor of Divinity Honoris Causa and Director of Pastoral Care at the Hebrew Home of Greater Washington in Maryland. So that's Dr. James Michaels. Next is Dr. Ekman Tam, who's Professor of Spirituality and Psychotherapy at the Graduate Theological Foundation, and he's our recipient this year of the Doctor of Divinity Honoris Causa, and he's president of the Christian Contemplative Spirituality Institute in Hong Kong. And lastly, those of you who were here last night will recognize the Reverend Dr. Douglas Ronsheim, who was our Lord Runcie Convocation speaker and the executive director of the American Association of Pastoral Counselors. As I've said, he was this year's lecturer, and he's also a recipient for us of the Doctor of Divinity Honoris Causa. So those are the good. Whether the next side are great or not, I'm not going to say. But over here we have people that you really do need to know who are fundamental to the Graduate Theological Foundation. So going from the end, right at that end over there, you have Bethany Morgan, some of you may know her very well, who's our registrar, so she's right at the end. Next to her is Dr. Linda Morgan, who's our provost. I've got to get that word right, because in England we say provost, but provost here. Next to her is our president, Dr. Kendra, sorry, I'm getting you all wrong, Dr. Kendra Clayton, who's the president of our Graduate Theological Foundation. There's a gap where I sit. And then Dr. Omar Shaheen, Director of Islamic Studies. So I hope you've got an idea that we are really wishing you well this morning. So without any more ado, perhaps we can just open the ceremony.
On behalf of the Foundation's Board of Directors, faculty and administration, and the students of the graduating class, we wish to extend this warm and heartfelt welcome to all on this glorious day of celebration. Come into the circle of community. Come into the circle of love. Come into the circle of dreams. Come into the circle of hope for the future.
May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
天下有喜，以为天下母。既得其母，以知其子。既知其子，复熟其母。莫生不殆。塞其兑，闭其门，终身不勤。开其兑，济其事，终身不救。见小于耳明，手游越强，用其光，复归其名。 无疑山殃，是为习常。The beginning of the universe, when made manifest, may be seen as its mother. When we have found the mother, we will know the children as well. And though we have come to know the children, we will still embrace the mother. Thus, however much the body may decay, we shall never perish. To realize the insignificance of things is called clarity of sight. To keep what is weak is called power. Use your light, but dim your brightness, and thus you will cause no harm. This is called following the eternal path.
We are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but on a lampstand where it shines for everyone in the house. And thus our light is to shine on everyone, so that they may see our good works and so give glory to our God in heaven.
No longer shall the sun be your light by day, nor the brightness of the moon your light at night. But the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your glory. Nevermore will your sun set, nor your moon wane, for the Lord will be your everlasting light, your days of mourning at an end forever.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله نور السماوات والأرض، مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح، المصباح في زجاجة، الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار، نور على نور، يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم. The general meaning of this verses: God is the light of the heavens and the earth. The likeness of his light is the niche in the wall where is placed a lamp, and the lamp enclosed in glass. The glass seems to be a shining star. The lamp is lighted with oil from a blessed tree, an olive of neither the east nor the west, whose oil would glow forth of itself, though no fire touch it. Light upon light, God guides to this light whom God will, and God speaks to people through symbols, for God is the knower of all things.
If you'd like to stand, and if you would join the responses which are in bold type. Wisdom has built herself a house. She has set up her 7 pillars.
She has slaughtered her beasts. She has prepared her wine and set her feast table.
She has sent out her maidens to proclaim from the highest places in town.
Let whoever is ignorant come in here.
To the foolish, she says,
Come eat my bread, drink
Leave your foolish ways and live, and walk in the ways of insight.
Happy is the one who discovers wisdom, the one who gains understanding.
For gaining her is better than the profit from silver, better than that of gold.
She is more precious than pearls, and nothing you could desire is her equal.
In her right hand is long life, in her left riches and honor.
Her ways are those alike, and all her paths lead to peace.
She is a tree of life to those who hold her fast. Those who cling to her are acclaimed happy. If you'd like to sit.
Good morning. I'm pleased to have the opportunity today to introduce to you the 2014 graduation speaker, Dr. Carol Eipers. Dr. Eipers is Vice President and Executive Director for Catechetics for William H. Sadlier, Incorporated. She served in parish ministries for over 20 years as a teacher, Director of Religious Education, Youth Minister, and Pastoral Associate. Dr. Eipers was Director of the Office for Catechesis for the Archdiocese of Chicago for 9 years, and also served as President of the National Conference of Catechetical Leadership. Dr. Eipers has been a member of the adjunct faculties of Mundelein Seminary, Loyola University Chicago, Loyola University New Orleans, and Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. She has published and made presentations throughout the country and internationally in the area of catechetics. Dr. Eipers holds the Bachelor of Arts in Education from Edgewood College in Madison, Wisconsin, a Master of Pastoral Studies from Loyola University in Chicago, and a Doctor of Ministry from the Graduate Theological Foundation. The Graduate Theological Foundation awarded Dr. Eipers a Doctor of Education degree honoris causa in 2000. Her book, Sending Out Roots, Helping Parents and Teachers to Share the Faith, was published by Veritas Publishers in Dublin, Ireland. And her book for catechist, Wade, Don't Dive, will be published this year by 23rd Publications. Very pleased to introduce to you today Dr. Carol Eipers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Clayton, beloved Dr. Morgan, distinguished faculty and staff, honored graduates, and dear guests. It is good for us to be here. It is good for me to be here, to remember the Graduate Theological Foundation, to remember my time, 1988. Were any of you born then? And near the time of my graduation, I wrote a reflection entitled A Farewell, and it began like this: like a child in a toy store who has been told it's time to leave, I find myself protesting, I don't want to go. I was unanxious to leave the experience of the Graduate Theological Foundation. For me, it not only enhanced my ministry and my career, and it certainly did, but it maintained and grew my faith and even my life. Because, first of all, it was not a place. We met on borrowed land. It was a people, and a pilgrim people at that. And second, comes from really one of my favorite books, which is entitled Appreciate Me Now and Avoid the Rush. And in there, the author, Ashley Brilliant, writes, "It's strange, but wherever I take my eyes, they see things from my point of view." I had gone through 18 years of Catholic education, and I thought it was time to get a different view. I sought a broader experience, a better vision of my brothers and sisters. And in fact, in the midst of my studies, I did an intervention with an alcoholic superior, and I was told my services were no longer required. And it was my Graduate Theological Foundation colleagues who saved me. The Baptists and the Episcopalians and the Methodists and the Lutherans and the Quakers and the Presbyterians who offered the words of encouragement, the hands that picked me up, the arms that supported me. And so for me, they made the breadth of the body of Christ real. I invite you today to embrace the grace of the memories that you have. Which are the ones which will continue to nourish you as you go on in your journey? There's a story told of two little boys who were absolute terrors. Everything that went wrong in their families, in their communities, in their schools, and in their congregations, they were a part of. And so the parents, at their wits' end, brought the children to see the pastor. And the younger one went in first. He was about 8. And he went in, and the pastor gently said, "My son, where is God?" And the little boy just looked. And so a little more insistently, the pastor said, "My son, where is God?" And again, the little boy just looked. And finally, in frustration, the pastor said, "My son, where is God?" And with that, the little boy jumped up, ran all the way home, ran up to his room, into his closet, and closed the door. The older boy saw this and ran after him and went into the closet, and there was his little brother with tears streaming down his face, and he said, "What happened in there?" And the little boy said, "We're really in trouble now. God's gone, and they think we took him." In a world of war and terrorism, a time of tragic natural and man-made disasters, an era of devastating failures in governments, corporations, the economy, environmental issues, and even in our churches, temples, and mosques, those we encounter may well ask, "Where is God?" And they will look to you, to us, to answer, to even be the answer. Can you embrace the grace of this moment, the grace of your faith, and your call to be witnesses? Rabbi David Wolpe, in Healer of Shattered Hearts, writes, "Faith alone will not make the world right. Faith does not eradicate conflict or eliminate pain, but God can touch a life. Faith can alter vision. No other force can so fill the night with presence, hear the unspoken fears, calm the uncertain stirrings when the dark is so strong that even the shadows disappear." How will you embrace the grace of this moment of every this moment. Several years ago, the New York Times had an article about the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. And it said in the article that of the 450,000 items in the museum's collection, only about 4% are ever on display. Some are waiting restoration, some are waiting the perfect spot to put them. And I think the same is true of our faith. The essentials are always on display. But sometimes we need to bring out, to emphasize anew elements that are particularly needed in the lives of our people, in the world in which we live. So I reflected on my own work and my own life and my own faith, and I will suggest to you what I am suggesting to myself needs to be on display, needs to be emphasized. And the first comes from another story I heard, which was about a widow and widower who were dating for 5 years. They were quite elderly, and the man finally decided it was time to ask her to marry him. And so he invited her out to dinner, and he asked her to marry him. And the next morning he woke up and couldn't remember what she said. And he said, well, I think she looked happy. No, she hesitated. Maybe and finally swallowed his pride and gave her a call and said, we had a lovely time last night, and I know I asked you to marry me, and I'm so embarrassed because I can't remember what you said. And she said, I'm so glad you called. I knew I said yes to someone, but I couldn't remember who. You and I have to remember who we said yes to. The vocation that we responded to. We have to remember who we said yes to, that is the foundation of all the little yeses of each day. We have to be people of clear faith in a secular society. And a second thing I think needs to be on display comes from cultural anthropologist Jennifer James, who speaks of the skills that we need in leaders today. And she writes, we need the kind of leader that when that person enters a room, the safety level of everyone present increases. In the diversities of our communities, our cities, and our world, is everyone safe with us? And a third point is living our faith, have you noticed, is not always popular in today's societies. So, I carry this little device which promises life-enhancing sounds. So, when things are bad and people don't appreciate you, or maybe you have an announcement to make and you don't know that they'll accept it well. Well, maybe that won't work. But I would invite you to bring your own life-enhancing sounds along. As you leave this graduation ceremony, can you bring along some words of Scripture that inspire you? Can you bring words of a parent's love, a spouse's love, a colleague's wisdom, a sacred song, something that will continue to inspire you? Efat Salah, an Egyptian blogger, wrote, "You cannot let what people think of you keep you from doing the right thing." And a fourth point is, it's all so much more simple than we make it. Love God, love your neighbor. It's not easy, but it's so simple, really. And a fifth thing I remind myself of is there's always something to celebrate. I did a hot air balloon ride one time over the Sonoran Desert, and then we landed, actually crashed in a bush, and there in the middle of a desert was a table set with chilled champagne and fresh croissants. And as we walked around to the table, if you looked on the ground, there was evidence of animal life. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then they poured the champagne, and I realized as I held that cup that I had a choice to make. That I could look in the eyes of my colleagues and celebrate the moment, or I could focus on the you-know-what on the ground. We have a choice to make, and as people of faith, we must be people of hope, who find always a reason to celebrate. And the sixth point is, be generous in gratitude and affirmation. I don't think we do that enough. And I would invite you to offer those things to your superiors as well as to those whom you perceive to work with you or under you. I think we need, seventh, to exploit technology. Always, though, in service to the mission and always asking, is this technology the best and most effective way to proclaim the faith? And then I think we need to consider mentoring. Be one, first of all. Each of you has someone that you can reach out to mentor and hopefully to encourage to come to the Graduate Theological Foundation. But also, get one. If you have not identified a mentor, identify one now or soon, because if Graduate Theological Foundation taught us anything, it's that learning never ends. Learning never ends, and we need to have mentors to help us to continue to grow. Embrace the grace of the seeds which fall on the soil of today. What seeds of promise will you nurture for the future? In 1988, when I graduated, I was thinking this morning, we had no technology. I believe we had the original stone tablets. But in that time, we were in the first intertraditional program. And I thought, wow, this is such diversity, because we had all these other Christians. And baby, look at you now. Look at the diversity that you embrace now. And at the end of my reflection before my graduation, I wrote, I am a child again, reluctant to begin the long journey which starts. But I have caught a glimpse of the reign of God, resplendent with unity, and I set out already asking our common God, how long till we get there? In this gathering, in each of you, we draw ever closer to peace and unity and to God's dream for all of us. If we embrace the graces of the past and the graces of the present and the graced potentials of tomorrow, we will get there. And we can indeed set the world on fire with faith.
Thank you, Dr. Eipers. In recognition of the outstanding contribution to biblical studies made by Krister Stendahl, late Dean of Harvard Divinity School, and in appreciation for his early involvement and enthusiastic interest in the work and mission of this institution's commitment to religious pluralism, the Graduate Theological Foundation has established the Krister Stendahl Medal in Biblical Studies. Today, we are pleased to award the 2014 Krister Stendahl Medal in Biblical Studies to the Reverend Dr. Renita Weems in recognition of her outstanding contribution to biblical scholarship and its practical application to the spirituality of daily life, evidenced in her prolific scholarly and popular writing and publishing. Dr. Renita Weems is in absentia.
The title of Honorary Fellow is the highest recognition awarded by the Graduate Theological Foundation to a scholar who is not a member of our faculty. In recognition of his years of dedicated service to the practice and teaching of pastoral care and counseling, and his nationally acclaimed leadership role for the professionalization of pastoral counseling, as Executive Director of the American Association of Pastoral Counselors, the Graduate Theological Foundation is pleased to award the Reverend Dr. Douglas Ronsheim the Doctor of Divinity honoris causa and to induct him as an honorary fellow. The title of Fellow is the highest honor the Graduate Theological Foundation can bestow upon any member of our faculty. Rabbi James Michael is the Rabbi A. Stanley Dreyfus Professor of Jewish Studies at the GTF. He has had a distinguished career as a pulpit rabbi and healthcare chaplain with roots in the academic community. In recognition of his outstanding contribution to pastoral care and late life counseling, and in appreciation for his scholarly role as professor of Jewish studies, the Graduate Theological Foundation is pleased to award Rabbi Dr. James R. Michaels the Doctor of Divinity honoris causa and to induct him as a fellow.
Thank you. Thank you. I always have to do that.
Thank you.
Dr. Clayton has allowed me very generously the opportunity to say a few words. I'm trying to get this so it'll be recorded as well. This is not my first DD degree. The DD is routinely given by rabbinical seminaries to graduates who have been in the field for 25 years. And among my colleagues, one of whom is here, we joke that the DD stands for didn't die. It was with that in mind that I went to my seminary to receive my DD, grateful that I had made it through 25 years. One of my classmates was a man who had achieved a position of leadership of a major Jewish organization. He's one of the people who gets invited to the White House all the time. Since he was, at least on paper, a man of greater achievement than the rest of us, he was given the opportunity to say a few words in private before the official ceremony began. He looked at us and said that he was in awe. Unlike him, we had served in congregations with all their headaches and heartaches as well as all their rewards, and we had stood the test of time. And then he said, "Never think that this is an unearned degree. You have earned it with the sweat of your brows and with a dedication to serving God and humanity." And so when I was offered this honorary degree, plus the opportunity to become a fellow of the Graduate Theological Foundation, I readily accepted it. Just like the first time, I feel this degree has been earned through dedication to my profession and to scholarly inquiry, through my commitment to bring pastoral care to the elderly, and my loyalty to the mission of Graduate Theological Foundation. And if I may be allowed one sentence to you who are graduating this year, you have earned your degree. Now go out and start earning it. And I hope that someday you will be up here in my position, and I will be able to congratulate you then. No speech like this is valid without opportunities to express gratitude. So I first wish to express my gratitude to Dr. Kendra Clayton and the entire faculty and administration for bestowing this honor upon me. To Dr. John Morgan for his guidance and love throughout the years. To Rabbi A. Stanley Dreyfus of blessed memory, my teacher, colleague, and friend. To my wife Karen and my family, who have been my constant source of support in good times and in bad. And to God, whom I thank for keeping me alive, sustaining me, and bringing me to this very happy day. This truly is the day which the Lord has made. Let us be glad and rejoice therein.
Thank you, Rabbi Michaels. Dr. Ekman P.C. Tam is Professor of Spirituality and Psychotherapy at the Graduate Theological Foundation and is President of the Christian Contemplative Spirituality Institute. The Institute offers training in Christian contemplative spirituality, spiritual direction, and soul care ministry to pastoral workers in Vancouver, Sydney, and Hong Kong. Dr. Tam is now the main faculty member of the Institute and gives courses and retreats for the programs in these 3 cities. Dr. Tam has authored 7 books, including Christian Contemplation and Chinese Zen Taoism, a study of Thomas Merton's writings, and a psycho-spiritual approach to spiritual direction based on Satter model of therapy. He has also contributed chapters and articles to almost 20 English and Chinese books. In recognition of Dr. Tam's outstanding contribution to pastoral care and spirituality, as reflected in the creation of the Christian Contemplative Spirituality Institute, and in appreciation for his scholarly role as Professor of Spirituality and Psychotherapy, the Graduate Theological Foundation is pleased to award Dr. Ekman Tam the Doctor of Divinity honoris causa and to induct him as a fellow.
With deep gratitude, and together with my beloved family, although they are not here today, and also together with my dear students all around Sydney, Hong Kong, and Vancouver, I receive this honor. Thank you.
The John Macquarie Fellowship in Philosophical Theology is the highest recognition the faculty of the Foundation can give to a graduating student in a doctoral program. This fellowship is named for the late Professor John Macquarie, Lady Margaret Professor of Divinity Emeritus, who served as the Martin Heidegger Professor of Philosophical Theology at the Foundation until his death in 2007. The 2014 John Macquarie Fellowship is awarded to Sandra Eileen Larragori Vera for her thesis titled Post-Eucharistic Participation, Answers from Santa Teresa de Avila's Work, Exclamaciones, a hermeneutic phenomenological study. The Imam Malik Fellowship in Islamic Studies is the highest recognition the faculty of the Foundation can give to a graduating student in the doctoral program in Islamic Studies. Imam Malik from the 8th century is considered one of Islam's greatest scholars, whose book, the Kitab al-Muwatta, is the earliest surviving book of Islamic law and health. The 2014 Imam Malik Fellowship in Islamic Studies is awarded to Sheikh Dr. Safwat Ali Morsi Magoob for his thesis titled The Islamic Discourse and the Changing Reality. The Dorothy Day Prize in Pastoral Care and Counseling honors her pastoral care to the poor and outcast of the world and is awarded this day to Chaplain Diane D. Kreslins for her project titled Instruction Manual on the Interdisciplinary Approach to Quality Spiritual Care in Oncology Palliative Care. The Rabbi Samuel Cohen Prize in Jewish Studies honors his work in Jewish philosophy and is awarded this day to Ms. Julie Levitt for her project titled Embodied Jewish Spiritual Direction. The Ibn Taymiyyah Prize in Islamic Studies honors the medieval Muslim scholar and is awarded this day to Mr. Masad Imamovic for his project titled Islamic Weekend School, The Case of Bosnian Diaspora, 1906 to 2014, Curriculum, Teaching Methodology, and Didactic Principles. Mr. Imamovic is receiving his award in absentia. The Archdiocese of New York Prize in Catholic Studies honors the place of origin of the Foundation and is awarded this day to Sister Carmen Maldonado for her project titled Canonical Form of Marriage, History and Theology. Sister Maldonado is receiving her award in absentia. The President Jimmy Carter Prize in Conflict Resolution honors the outstanding contribution the President continues to make on behalf of the international community in addressing global issues of social justice and human rights, and is awarded this day to Samuel Ulubunmi Oloyede for his paper titled Clinical Psychotherapy and the Nature of Ministry.
Congratulations to all of our 2014 fellowship and prize winners. Well done. At this time, we're going to take a moment to recognize and celebrate one of the Graduate Theological Foundation's oldest and most important institutional affiliations, our affiliation with the Oxford University Department for Continuing Education, the OUDCE. This year is the 20th anniversary of the establishment of a formal relationship between the GTF and the OUDCE. In recognition of this occasion, the Reverend Canon Dr. Vincent Strudwick, the first director of the Oxford University Theology Summer Program, and the Bishop John Tinsley Professor of Anglican Theology at the GTF, has prepared a congratulatory statement to be read this morning. Canon Strudwick's statement will be read by the Very Reverend Dr. John Moses, Dean Emeritus of St. Paul's Cathedral, London, and John Macquarie, Professor of Anglican Theology at the GTF. Dr. Moses is an Anglican priest who has held a variety of parochial, diocesan, and cathedral appointments in the UK, including his years as the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, London. He holds the degree of Doctor of Philosophy from Nottingham University and honorary doctorates in recognition of his work from Anglia-Ruskin University, Nottingham University, and the Graduate Theological Foundation. I'm very pleased to introduce to you the Very Reverend Dr. John Moses.
Many of us who are here today know how much Vincent Strudwick has meant to GTF over the years. I know also how much GTF has meant to Vincent. And because my own personal friendship with Vincent goes back, gosh, dare I say it, over nearly 60 years, it is an honor for me today to read the statement that Vincent has written. It was 20 years ago that Dr. John Morgan put down a significant marker in the ever-developing life of the Graduate Theological Foundation when he visited the Department for Continuing Education of the University of Oxford. The year previously, in my role as Director of Theology and Religion Programs in the department, I had launched a pilot for an annual International Theology Summer Program. Always vigilant, Dr. Morgan had noted this and described to me and to Professor Angus Hawkins, who heads up all of the international programs in the department, the philosophy, curricula, and practice of the GTF. The flexibility essential for ministry professionals in the field, yet academic probity of the process he outlined, with opportunities for gathered lectures and seminars and personal supervision, captured my interest. And the same year saw a goodly number of GTF students enrolled for the summer program at Christ Church in the University of Oxford, in a relationship that has grown and developed in all the intervening years. Many of the Oxford theology faculty, including distinguished members now departed, like John Macquarie and John Fenton, have enjoyed the hospitality and teaching opportunities of the GTF in Indiana, while in addition to the summer school, many GTF students have come to Oxford under the umbrella of Foundation House. In early days, the majority of students were Christian, albeit from many denominations. However, in changing times, the Foundation opened its education provision to all faith communities, so it is now a truly interfaith pioneer. This put down another welcome marker as members in their individual professional capacity, but also belonging to differing faith communities, pursue their learning side by side in the same foundation. This practical illustration of the dignity of difference is, I believe, a vitally important marker in the globalized and increasingly secular society to which we all belong. So I am delighted and honored to have been invited to offer my congratulations and thanks to John Morgan and the GTF for the work they have initiated and pursued and the partnerships they have forged to resource this work. Markers are part of a process, so I am confident there will be more, grateful for those we celebrate, but continually expectant. Thank you.
Dr. Clayton, in accordance with the laws of the state of Indiana and pursuant to the provisions of the corporate charter of the Graduate Theological Foundation as granted by the state of Indiana, I have the privilege and pleasure to present to you as president the members of the graduating class of 2014 for the conferral of the degrees earned in course of study to be attested by the giving of the diploma. For the Bachelor of Religious Education, Ms. Anita M. Darcy. Mrs. Colleen Ann Gonzalez. For the Bachelor of Theology, Imam Farid Bedroli. Deacon Michael Vincent Scanella. For the Master of Mediation, Reverend Samuel Olubunmi Oloyede. For the Master of Pastoral Counseling, Chaplain Diane D. Cresslins. For the Master of Religious Education, Mr. Stanley Ning. For the Master of Theology, Miss Kaula A. Al-Sadi. Ms. Aisha Deeb. In the Doctor of Ministry degree, Mr. Joseph Michael Gall. Archbishop Ronald Wayne Langham. Chaplain Douglas Weldon Lawson. Ms. Julie Levitt. Mrs. Margaret M. Nikeza. The Reverend Ralph Bunch Terrell. Ms. Laura Ann Thor. Mr. James P. Wilkins. In the Doctor of Education program, Mr. William Hobbs. Miss Carol Elizabeth Reed Jones. Mr. Lincoln Edward Sigwald. In the Doctor of Psychology program, the Reverend Jean Louise Beard Allen. Professor Muhammad Abdulrahman Al-Rahman. Reverend Judy Hill Butler. The Reverend Patrice Ann Chasty Miller. the Reverend Thomas Mason Lumpkins. Pastor Adriana Serban. The Reverend Jerry Allen Waddell. The Reverend Patricia Hawkins Wells. In the Doctor of Philosophy program, the Reverend Joachim Ugoju. Mr. Mohammed Yunus Al-Ray. Mr. Sami Bashir Ameri. Mr. Robert Douglas Anderson, Sr. The Reverend Cosmas P. Archibong. The Reverend Nancy Deach. The Reverend Alphonsus Ifeanyichukwu Inalichi. The Reverend John J. Galliano. Mrs. Hana Taleb Jaber. Imam Tahir M. Kukai. Ms. Sandra Eileen Laragordi Vera. Sheikh Safwat Ali Morsi Magoob. Imam Muhammad E. Musri. The Reverend Jose A. Rivera Maldonado. Mr. Mohammed Siddiqui. Sheikh Shamsularifin Siddiqui. Please join me in congratulating the graduating class of 2014.
Could you all stand, please? This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.